By my count, it had been 90 days since I was reincarnated as a slime. To be more precise, 90 days, 7 hours, 34 minutes, and 52 seconds. How was I so sure about this? Turned out that was one of the many side effects of evoking that great sage skill. Holy cats, that thing was helpful. Talk about your best friend in a pinch. Any questions that popped to my mind? It instantly provided the answer. According to the sage, it took 90 days for the skill to fully fuse itself with my soul. Normally, it would be unable to provide responses in the form of conversation, but in order to answer my questions, it apparently revamped itself, diverting part of its world language powers to assist me, and that's how it was explained to me, at least. This useful ability, relaying words into my mind, isn't normally possible. As it explained to me, this world language was heard only when there was great changes in the world, or when you either earned or upgraded a skill, something that normally didn't happen all that often. These skills were obtained only rarely, when the world recognized that you had grown in one way or another. Evolution, meanwhile, was something most people never got to experience in their lives. It was all Greek to me, but if that was how it was, I was willing to accept it. So the great sage was answering my questions at the moment, but otherwise, it was totally a passive thing. No real sentence or anything, unless I spoke up. It would never talk to me of its own volition. That was the only real drawback. But tossing words around with someone again was a wonderful feeling, even if it was a one-way street. Although, back in my home world, having a conversation with my own skill might have been considered strange. So there I was, still locked in darkness, asking a barrage of questions. One thing that the replies confirmed was that yes, I was a slime now. I also found out why I never got hungry or sleepy. The slimes in this world, it turned out, never had to eat anything if they could keep absorbing the magic particles, or magicules, in the air. In less magically abundant regions, I would be obliged to fill up by absorbing monsters, or small creatures. Most slimes shied away from areas with low magic presences, but the ones that didn't were apparently both quite strong and madly vicious. Usually it was the other way around, where a wealth of local magic meant especially strong monsters. In other words, the area I took up residence in was so laden with magic that I didn't even have to eat. As for the sleep question...
Received. The body of a slime consists of a mass of completely identical cells. Each individual cell may function as a brain cell, a nerve cell, or a muscle cell. Since the operational cells used for thought are rotated in and out at regular intervals, there is no need for you to sleep.
This raised the question of where my memories were being held exactly. Maybe it was kind of like a RAID setup on a computer? That would be close enough, came the response. Considering its lack of personality, the sage certainly came up with some snappy replies. Speaking of which, the Grey Sage skill consisted of 5 effects. Hasten thought, boost perception speed by 1,000 times, analyze and assess. Analyzes and assesses the target. Parallel operation. Operates on any matter you wish to analyze, separating it from the regular thought process. Cast cancel. Annuls the casting period required when using magic, etc. All of creation. Provides full coverage of all unsuppressed matter and phenomena in this world. All of creation? So I know about everything? Everywhere? With no effort on my part? Score! Or so I thought. It turned out that I could only be told information related to things I'd already heard about. In other words, I needed to recognize and understand a concept before I could grab a full analysis of it. And the spell thing, did that mean I could instantly use any magic once I learned it? And there was magic in this world and stuff? The Great Sage replied with a big yes. Well, once I knew that, I just had to try to learn a few spells myself. I checked with the Great Sage to see if he could help me cast magic. But that was a no-go. It was worth a shot. Still, I had another great idea. Could I link the Predator Analysis skill with Great Sage Parallel Operation?
Received. It is possible to link Predator Analysis with Great Sage Parallel Operation. Do you wish to link them, yes or no?
Yeah? Not that I had anything to analyze yet. Wait, or did I? That grass in my stomach. The stuff I had been eating to pass the time. What was that? Not like I had anything else to do. Let's give it a try. Off you go, Sage.
Analysis complete. Poke-day herb, a type of ingredient used in healing medication, only thrives in areas blessed with high local magic densities. Fusing its juice with magicules produces recovery medicine. Grinding the blades and fusing them with magicules produces a salve that closes wounds.
Wow! That was what I'd been snacking on? Talk about an unexpected windfall! I immediately set out to create some medicine of my very own. The process took place inside my body, so it didn't really feel much like crafting. But the analysis took less than a second, and within another 3-ish, I had my very first potion. 5 minutes, and I could have had 100. And while I didn't have anything else to compare it to, using my great sage skills to assess them resulted in a high quality rating. So, there you go. I was happy enough with that at least. It all went so fast too. I asked the sage about it, and it said the process usually took more time than that. Linking it with the parallel operation must have been the right idea, I suppose. To test that theory out, I unlinked it long enough to create a single potion. It took 50 minutes! Damn, that was slow! Looks like I had the foresight to stumble across some mega-compatible skills to combine. Not that I knew what I was doing at all. Some of your garden variety weeds were also sprouting here and there, but most of the local grasses were hippocae. How about that? So I decided, as little assurance, to consume all the herbs that I could in the area, and turn my stomach into a little recovery potion factory. I didn't have much else to occupy my time. It was still pitch black in here. There was no doubt about it. I had put my guard down. I had a partner who granted me skills, and the ability to engage in kinda passive conversation, and I let it get to my head. I suppose that it had a lot to do with how for 90 days in a row, I never ran into any other creatures. No danger to my life whatsoever. But either way, I had let my guard down. For instance, I was like, huh? I felt a sudden sensation that I had grown lighter, or heavier, or unstable. Did I fall in some water? In the past 90 days, I hadn't felt so much as a drop of water hit my body. I assumed I was in a rain-free cave or some other kind of shelter, so I'd never entertained the possibility before. I had probably slipped into a river or something. Rivers don't exist indoors, so maybe it was some kind of underground creek in this cave I was in? Up to now, I had been careful with every step I took, making sure everything remained steady in the darkness. But after learning about my skills, getting full of myself, and using Predator to eat a pasture's worth of grass, I'd stopped paying attention to what was under me. I was always like that, getting cocky and then screwing it all up in the end. I'd proclaim to a customer, "Oh, absolutely, that won't be a problem at all." Then have hell to pay. And it happened over and over. I still remember the spiteful looks the rest of my team gave me for it. Too bad I didn't think to stop myself in time. What kind of idiot runs off into parts unknown when they can't even see? If I survived this, I was gonna give myself hell for it. Of course, given my personality, I doubt I'd learn anything from it. It was funny how serenely I was handling this whole thing, though. Not like I had much in the form of arms or legs I could flail around about in horrified panic. Guess it's over then. Pretty sure a lifetime. Even by slime standards. Maybe. I said my final prayers, awaiting my inevitable suffocation. Suffocation never came. Why not? Did I not fall in the water? Time to call in the sage, maybe.
Received. A slime's body operates exclusively on magicules. Oxygen is unnecessary, and therefore, so is breathing. This is why you have not been engaging in that behavior.
Oh, right. I wasn't paying attention. But I guess there wasn't any breathing, was there? Made sense. Even after 90 days, I was still learning something new. But now wasn't the time to celebrate. I had fallen into water. And even if I wouldn't die, it did still put me in kind of a bind. What now? I couldn't really tell whether I was floating or sinking. My lack of limbs precluded any attempt at swimming. Would I wind up at the bottom sooner or later and be able to creep my way back to the surface? Or was I doomed to bob around in the middle of the current, never reaching in much of anywhere? Though, if anything, it felt less like a violent current and more like I was being rocked in a cradle. Very gently rocked. It felt pretty good even. Something told me this wasn't flowing water after all. Maybe it was a lake, not a river. It didn't feel as though I was being taken anywhere. I was just kind of bobbing up and down, like a plastic bag. And it didn't feel as if I'd ever hit the bottom. If things stayed this way, I was in big trouble. What now? Just then, my brain cells, or my slime body, I guess, came up with an ingenious plan. Maybe I could go all Predator on this water, and then spit it out for some water jet propulsion. Would that work? Only one way to find out. Not like I could do anything else. So I started drinking, filling up my Predator stomach to approximately 10% of its capacity. Then I expelled it like I was wringing out my stomach. The sense of release was exhilarating. Suddenly, I heard a voice in my mind.
Water pressure propulsion skill acquired.
It was the first time I recognized it. This had to be the so-called world language. There was no mistaking it, since the sage spoke only when spoken to, but the two voices did sound exactly the same. But I didn't have a moment to ponder over this. The more pressure I applied on the water, the more pressure I felt on myself, and I was rocketing forward at astonishing speed, as if I was about to launch myself into the sky. The acceleration was intense. Honestly, maybe it was a good thing I couldn't see. Instead, I just basked in the sensation of my body zipping along through the darkness. Well, let me clarify. If I could have seen my surroundings, I'm sure the fear would have been intense. But not being able to see was just as terrifying. If you've ever been on a roller coaster in an amusement park in total darkness, perhaps you'd understand the feeling. My mind flashed back to my previous life and the single day I spent visiting a certain paradise under the rule of a certain rodent. At least this magical dreamland offered safety harnesses. By this point, I wanted to punch myself for coming up with the idea and trying it out right after thinking it up. Come on, man! What happened is some kind of, preliminary safety check. The terror was starting to affect my train of thought. How long would I keep accelerating? How much water did I spit out anyway? As the thought occurred to me, I felt my body crash headlong into something and bounce off of it. I braced myself for a wave of paralyzing pain, which never came. Huh? Shouldn't that have, damaged me? Or did it damage me? And I just didn't feel it. Or whatever.
Received. You have acquired Cancel Pain, which interrupts your creation of pain. Your resist melee attack has reduced the amount of damage taken. The amount of damage to your body incurred is 10%. The intrinsic slime skill, self-regeneration, has taken effect. Would you like to support it with your predator unique skill? Yes or no?
Oh, so I was hurt a little then? Made sense. I wasn't sure whether this was a good or bad thing, but as long as I knew something was up, then maybe I didn't need to feel pain after all. It makes certain things easier. Predator support though, huh? I don't really get it, but sure. Yes, at that moment, I was greeted with the feeling that I had suddenly lost some of my body mass. After a while, I felt it return. My damaged parts had been predatored, analyzed, and repaired. Talk about a useful body to have. I should try testing it later, to see how much of I can afford to lose before I'm KO'd. It was way too dangerous to mess with in detail, but I guess I could afford to go without it, at least a bit of it, at a time. So, something told me I was getting a little too careful. Anyway, I had a stockpile of recovery potions, which I didn't even have to use, and I would have figured losing 1/10 of my body would have been a pretty serious issue. But now, I knew I could just regenerate it in a space of 10 seconds. Next time I was damaged, I'd try using those potions. So where am I? I wonder. Making sure my body was back to normal, I checked out my surroundings. No telling what kind of dangerous monsters might be nearby. I was out of the water, but maybe there were scary, scaly things waiting for me on the other side. Slowly, carefully, I started taking action. It kind of seemed as if whenever I did something carefully, it meant I was about to be exposed to a heap of danger. I was sure it was just my mind playing tricks on me, though. And that thought probably did me no favors, because...
Can you hear me, little one?
I heard something!